Welcome, everyone. Welcome. We will begin in 1 minute. We're just going to allow folks to trickle in. Thank you for your patience and thank you for joining our session. While we're waiting today, feel free to drop your name and pronouns and organization in the chat so we can see who's joining us today. As you are trickling in, I also want to give you a heads up that today's webinar will be recorded. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Okay, as folks are trickling in, we'll go ahead and get started. Again, welcome to today's webinar on Generation Hope's recent report, Empowered Dads, Amplifying Voices, Advancing Higher Education for Student Fathers. My name is Dr. Brittany Williams, and I'm the Director of Advocacy, Policy, and Research. I am joined virtually by the amazing team members that made this report possible. Marley Brickstone, co-author of the report and Senior Policy Manager, and Yaslin Amaya, co-investigator and Student Advocacy Coordinator. Here at Generation Hope, our mission is to ensure that all student parents have the opportunities to succeed, experience economic mobility, and build wealth. Generation Hope engages education and policy partners to drive systemic change and provides direct support to teen parents in college as well as their children through holistic two-generation programming. At the end of today's program, we will have a Q&A. So if you have any questions, please feel free to submit them via the Q&A feature here on Zoom. The team is monitoring the Zoom chat, and so we will be able to answer your questions toward the end. I must say that we are super excited to present this research today and engage in thoughtful and robust conversation about the findings with our panelists later on, who are student fathers themselves. We hope that this report will contribute to a growing body of knowledge and encourage more thoughtful research and serve as a resource to guide policymakers who shape legislation that directly impacts student parents and their families. This report is also available on our website, and we will drop the link to the report in the chat right now. This report is brought to you at the core by the policy and advocacy priorities that we set at the beginning of this year, which identified economic mobility as our third pillar. And here we promised to investigate and identify and mitigate barriers that impact student fathers on their paths to and through higher education, especially Black, Indigenous, and Latino fathers. This piece is the first body of work in our investigation. In this report, our key objectives were to amplify voices. By delving into the narratives of student fathers, we sought to bring attention to their experiences and challenges, often overshadowed in discussions about higher education and caregiving. Also, advancing policy reforms. This report aimed to inform policy changes and institutional practices that better support student fathers in their academic supports. And finally, tailored support systems. Our research sought to identify specific needs and barriers faced by student fathers, paving the way for further development of targeted support programs and resources. A little bit about the framework for our study. In participant recruitment, participants were recruited through purposeful sampling to intentionally select participants based on their gender and parenting status in college. Targeting fathers from diverse backgrounds and experiences, our recruitment efforts involved reaching out to the current and alumni student fathers within Generation Hope's DC area direct service programming and the City University of New York, or known as CUNY, Fatherhood Academy alumni. The inclusion criteria included being a father and being willing to participate in a focus group discussion on parenting experiences. Our profile yielded 4 focus groups with a total of 10 participants. Participants were both current students and recent graduates within the last 3 years who attended both 2- and 4-year institutions across historically Black colleges and universities and predominantly white institutions. And so now I want to talk a little bit about what we learned. The narratives delved into the experiences of student fathers navigating the intricate balance of parenthood and their education. Throughout the discussions, several key themes emerged, shedding light on their motivations, challenges, and triumphs. And so for the next few slides, I want to share a bit of our findings, our specific themes that we uncovered. The first finding that we'll discuss today will be overcoming stigma and redefining gender roles. Student fathers reported that there was a challenge of societal norms and stereotypes by actively engaging in their children's lives. And we advocate for greater recognition of fathers' contributions to parenting. We'll get into this a little bit in our panel later. The next finding comes from emotional connection and leadership. The fathers reported viewing their roles as deeply emotional and integral to their children's upbringing, emphasizing the importance of leadership, guidance, and nurturing. Next is balancing responsibilities and personal growth. Student fathers reported facing significant challenges in time management, balancing work, studies, and parenting. But despite these challenges, they also experienced personal growth and recognized the positive influence of their education on their children's lives. Next, we highlighted the theme of support systems and resources. Available support services often cater to mothers, leaving fathers feeling undersupported. And so we recommend that there's a need for tailored programming and resources to address the unique needs of student fathers. In our report, after we had combed through some of our coding and our themes, and we heard from our student fathers in focus groups and also in follow-up journals that we had them do directly after participation in the focus groups, we developed recommendations across institutional, state, and federal levels. We found that the onus was not just on one lever of action and policy. We found that in tandem, it will require efforts across all 3 spaces to really provide holistic and sustainable support for student fathers. In the report, you can see or you can read how we put forth recommendations at the institutional level to provide targeted supports, At the state level, we talk about the importance of data collections and mandating supports at the institutional level. And we call on the federal level to provide supports around childcare services and also targeted support systems for student fathers. Now, we will move to our student father panel. It is my honor to introduce our moderator for today, Corey Porsche. Corey is a student father at Virginia State University, majoring in psychology with an aspiration to make a revolutionary impact on the understanding of modern psychology. He is currently working at U-Haul, and along with other interests, Corey is also the drum major of the Virginia State University Marching Trojan Explosion. In his free time, Corey loves to spend time with his son, create art, and cook. Corey is also a former Family U Fellow and worked with Virginia State University as a part of their institutional team to advance student-parent success on his campus. His mission is to serve his peers with humility, consideration, and compassion to ensure the security of their needs. With that, I turn it over to Corey.
Thank you so much, Dr. Williams, for the introduction. Greetings and most humble salutations. As stated, I am Corey Porsche, current senior psychology major at the illustrious Virginia State University. I'm also the father of a 3-year-old son named Legend, as well as a former student parent, as a student parent fellow, as mentioned by Dr. Williams. It's an honor and privilege just to be here today and to moderate this panel, and I'm so excited to just fellowship with you all and educate you guys on some of the things that we found. So without further ado, I just first would like to give an introduction to our panelists on today. First, thank both of you for your participation. So I'll be starting first with Mr. Darren Wellens. Thank you for joining us. So Darren is currently on the path to earning an associate's degree in web software development at Madison College. At the heart of his academic journey, he serves as the co-chair of the Student Parent Support Team and holds the position of treasurer for the Parenting Student Club. His commitment to helping others extends beyond academics as a job coach and doc manager at Egerton Community Outreach, where he works with different abled adults in their Opportunities program. As a dedicated single parent of 2, Darren's children are the inspiration and reason behind his journey. Having experienced the desire to provide more for his family without a clear starting point, he is passionate about sharing his experiences to inspire those facing similar challenges. Welcome, Darren.
Thanks for having me.
In addition, I'll also be introducing our second panelist, Mr. Christopher Jeremy Nieves. Christopher is a writer and educator. He is currently working as a mentor and as a tutor with CUNY Fatherhood Academy at LaGuardia Community College. Being someone who recently attended and completed the program, he helps other fathers who are working towards obtaining their GED as well. As a mentor, he provides student fathers with support and guidance as they work towards their diplomas. As a tutor, he provides academic support to students who may be in need of further assistance throughout the course of their GED program. Chris believes the work being done at the Fatherhood Academy is life-changing. And upon graduating from the program, Chris enrolled in LaGuardia Community College to pursue a degree also in psychology. When not tutoring or mentoring, Chris spends his time reading, writing, and bonding with his son through education and gaming. Please welcome Christopher.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So now that you've learned just a little bit about our panelists, I would love to dive right into our discussion. And so these questions will be given in general with no specific order to how both of you gentlemen would like to respond. So feel free, whoever would like to respond first, go ahead. And so our first question is, can you share an experience where you felt you had to challenge societal norms or stereotypes as a student father? How did you handle it? And what impact did it have on you and your family?
you like to go? Do you want me to go first?
I could take the first one if you don't mind.
Sure.
So in the beginning of my journey, when I decided to pursue higher education, my friends and family couldn't really understand why I would choose to work part-time and do school full-time, as opposed to working a full-time job with decent pay. They were under the common misconception or societal viewpoint that as a man and as a father, supporting my family financially was more important than educating myself and my child. Another struggle I faced is people being skeptical about if I can manage school, family, and work, while still providing the same value in each role. This was challenging since it made me question if I was making the right decision. But in the end, by communicating my goals, I was able to create a support system, which in turn allowed me to excel as a student father and continue to build a better life for my family.
I feel like I probably get more questions related to my age and being in college from my kids and their friends and parents included. When people find out that I'm still going to college, a lot of them ask why I'm still going to college, if I finished college before and, what the deal is. And the easiest thing that I can say is that I just like it. It's something that I did for my family, and it's something that's really been beneficial and provided an avenue and structure to provide more for my family. Um, Staying committed to it has had an immense impact on both of my kids. They bring their homework home, and my son had it was like an all about me assignment that he had to write on, and it asked what he wanted to be when he grows up, and he said that he wants to go to school and learn on his computer. And that was it was really cool to see the results from that and know that what I was doing was the right thing for my family.
Okay, beautiful, beautiful answers. And just to kind of agree on that as a student father, just giving kudos to both of you for just working, I would say in adversity or against the adversity. As student fathers, we're definitely subject to a lot of presumption and stigma. And so just to know that you guys have faced these obstacles and still will continue to be persistent about that is just, definitely commendable from a father to a father. So moving on to our next question. Let's start with Darren. In what ways do you find that your role as a father and student is emotional and integral to your children's upbringing? And how do you balance being a leader and nurturer in their lives?
So I think as parents and caregivers, we are the first and the main influence in our kids' lives. The things that we do and the emotions that we express and share with them are what they build their personalities on and what they build them into. I was a single father trying to homeschool my two kids in the middle of a pandemic, and it was something that I really had to figure out on my own, and the kids were watching me the entire time. Deciding to enroll back in school again was one of the better decisions that I made. It allowed me to be a better role model and be present for them at the same time. It gave us opportunities that they wouldn't have had. They're coming up to the college with me, and they're seeing other students learning and seeing that it pays off, and there's real results that come from the hard work that you put in. Um, Along the way, I've learned a lot about myself and about other people. And I feel like I've grown as a parent alongside my kids. I don't know if I think that there's a certain balance between being a leader and a nurturer. I think that it all can be kind of situational depending. I think being a leader in probably happens more often and is more important. You have to be a strong example, and you have to give your kids confidence to be strong and carry on through the tough times. But at the same time, you have to be compassionate and share your emotions with them. I think a lot of men especially were raised not to show their emotions, myself included, and I try to make it a point to my kids to share, when I'm nervous, when I'm unsure of things, or when I'm happy about things, and I think that that's really good for them.
Right. Chris, did you need me to repeat the question or are you okay?
No, I'm fine. So, managing academic responsibilities alongside being a parent can come with a lot of stress, and a lot of pressure. The struggle to balance personal needs with academic and parental responsibilities can lead to feelings of neglect, frustration, guilt, isolation. On the other hand, successfully balancing your roles can bring a deep sense of pride, personal fulfillment. But there are a lot of factors that can affect your emotional well-being, which can directly affect your child's personal and academic growth. I feel like by embracing your roles as both a father and a student, you contribute significantly to your child's upbringing, nurturing their academic, emotional, and personal growth. So when it comes to balancing being a leader and a nurturer, I don't really separate the two. I believe that when you're doing one, you're also doing the other.
Great answers, gentlemen. And it's funny that you bring in the fact of balancing, Christopher, because that actually is going to lead us to our next question, if you don't mind picking up on this one as well. So one of the major findings of the report that balancing work studies and parenting can be incredibly challenging, as we all know, right? So what are some of the biggest challenges that you faced in balancing these responsibilities? And can you share some strategies or practices that have helped you manage these responsibilities effectively?
I know personally for me, the biggest thing that's a challenge is pursuing my personal goals, such as furthering my education or advancing in my career, while ensuring that I still have the quality time with my child that they deserve. I understand that the time I spend with my child is detrimental to my child's development and academic growth. So, in order to manage those responsibilities, I try my hardest to incorporate as many academic activities into our bonding time so that I'm always doing both, not only for my child, but for myself.
And this question is also for you, Darren.
I think the biggest challenge that I've had just being a student father has been similar to his, is just finding time to work on homework and still being present and available to my kids at the same time. Being a parent is a full-time responsibility, and I made the decision and commitment to not put anything else before that, and that includes this also. So finding the balance has been tricky. I've been pretty fortunate to have the kids have friends that live right next door, and they're able to go over there and play with them, and their parents have been really supportive of me, and the support network that I've had at work has also been really beneficial to me. When I started there, they knew that I was on the path to getting my degree and trying to do more for my family, and they've been super supportive of that and let me take time off work if I need to catch up or do tests or anything like that. But at the same time, there's only so much time in the day, and a lot of times you find yourself working on homework at night, and maybe after the kids have gone to bed, right when they're getting ready for bed is when I usually start my homework. I think that no matter what your schedule looks like, if you want to stay interested and motivated, you have to try and find a little bit of time for yourself somewhere, whether it's 10 minutes while the kids are getting ready for bed, just watching YouTube or something like that, or just relaxing before the kids wake up in the morning. I think it's super important to find that little bit of time for yourself just to relax and reground yourself.
Yes, definitely agree. As someone who has various time commitments myself, I will definitely attest to the fact that just because a lot of parents, especially fathers, because we're more susceptible to take on more emotional load without actually displaying emotion. At the same time, I can definitely attest that when we ensure that we're good as fathers, in turn, that also ensures that we're good for our children. And so I think a lot of individuals, particularly fathers, we kind of negate that, or we forget that when you do treat yourself in a way that keeps you in a good space, that also in turn will be productive and beneficial for your children as well. So thank you guys for those responses. And so another thing, right, that this report has found through conversations with current student fathers and recent dad graduates is that most support services are tailored to mothers, leaving fathers like ourselves undersupported. So do you think that is true? And what specific resources or support systems do you think would be most beneficial for student fathers? And have you found any particular programs or services that have been helpful to you? Whoever would like to start first.
Darren, you can go.
Okay. Definitely. I think a lot of the supports and services that I've encountered and ran into have definitely been tailored towards single mothers. And in my opinion, I think that we should do away with titles like that entirely. I think if we have supports for student parents, then we have supports for all student parents. I think by singling out certain groups like that, that you're inadvertently ignoring others. And I think if you don't do that, the supports are provided for everyone. There's no specific supports for one individual person. Anyone can go there and get the type of help that they need. I think that that would be the most beneficial for everybody.
I also agree that there are a lot of services tailored to mothers. Although, from my experience, there are just as many services to support fathers. I just believe services for fathers are not properly communicated and broadcasted for student fathers to find. Making it feel as if we as student fathers are undersupported in the academic and professional world. But I really have to go back to what Darren said. It's about student parents. Father, mother, it doesn't make a difference. We're all parents and we're all students trying to, excel in higher education. Um, but for me personally, you know, coming from fatherhood, which is based on supporting men, you know, I feel like there should be a lot more services like fatherhood. But I also believe that, nothing should be just exclusive to a mother or a father. Everything should be inclusive to everyone. Because at the end of the day, it's all for the benefit of the children.
Definitely beautiful responses, gentlemen. And just sidebar, I hope the participants are enjoying this panel just as much as I am. I'm thoroughly enjoying this. We're getting to our final question before we move on to our Q&A. So finally, based on you all's experiences, what advice would you give to other student fathers who are navigating similar challenges? And are there any lessons that you learned that you would think would be particularly valuable for others to hear?
You want to go
I would,
first?
yeah, I'll go first. I would say a lesson I've learned is that life as a student father often brings unexpected changes and challenges. And my advice to that is to develop a mindset that embraces change. You have to be prepared to adjust your study schedule, your parenting routines. Things happen randomly, sporadically at any moment, especially with deadlines and stuff like that. But also, I would say mental health is important. You have to make time for yourself. You have to rejuvenate yourself. You have to exercise or find a hobby, something that is an outlet for you. Prioritize your sleep. Because remember, taking care of yourself enables you to better take care of your family and succeed.
Definitely. And to build on what he just said, I think that no matter how hard it gets or how much you feel like you might want to take a different path, you just have to keep going. You have to remind yourself why you're there, why you decided to put yourself and your family in a position to have a better life. I find myself I have found myself in the past, you're starting to get overloaded. You got a lot of work to do, and you're like, man, what am I doing here right now? And sometimes you just need to take a step away, for me, spend some time with your kids, and it really regrounds you and reminds you what you're doing and reaffirms you.
Great answers, gentlemen. Great answers. So we have come to the end of our formal questions, but we have been given 2 questions from our Q&A. So I'll start with the first one, this is a great question. Will I be covering this? I'm sorry. Okay, she's just changing the slide. I'm sorry. So yes, first question for the Q&A from Q&A. What advice can you give educators to support their student parents and encourage teen fathers to continue their education beyond high school?
I think including student voices in decisions that they're making in regards to like class schedules or due dates and things like that is super important. No one's schedule looks the same, and just because someone isn't available at a certain time doesn't mean that they're any less motivated or dedicated to what they're doing. And I think taking the students' opinions and schedules into account beforehand can be really beneficial for everybody.
I don't even know what to add to that. You kind of hit it on the nose. But no, I feel like, I don't think anybody should have any special treatment, but I believe that there should be a level of leniency that you have when you're dealing with a student parent. Because they just have a lot more on their plate. But being that they're students who are, showing effort or initiative or dedication to something should be considered and evaluated when it comes to grading or, giving somebody more time on the deadline or anything of that nature. I feel like it's they don't most educators don't understand how hard it is to do both because it's very hard.
That indeed, that indeed. All right, moving on. Oh, we have a slew of questions now coming in. Let's see here. So our second question, as student parents, what are some factors you needed to consider when you considered university and college? And what support systems did you look for did you look for or part of on campus?
One of the biggest factors for me was location. Because something that I find important is time management. Especially, as a parent, it's hard to even have time management when you want to do school because kids are sporadic, you can get a phone call today that's like, hey, you have to come pick your child up, and you can be in the middle of a class. So location was important for me. Um, and for me, that was the biggest one, location, because I want to be able to be close to school and close to my child at the same time.
Similar for me, I was looking for remote options that would make it easier for me. I wanted to still be able to drop my kids off at school in the morning and pick them up in the afternoon. And I made a personal decision that I wasn't going to take a job or change my schedule in a way that would negatively impact them at all. So, I tried to find online options, and Madison College seemed like they had the best online curriculum, and that's where I decided to go.
Great, great, great. Alrighty. What is something student family or student parent programs could do soon, particularly or for example during the fall term, to help center and support student fathers? is there an event, a support group, or an activity, or anything of that nature that would be especially fun or helpful? Or maybe you have done one before at your school?
I've
I think
actually been working
sorry.
closely with some of my coworkers to start the Student Parents Rise Club. Um, I believe that's one of the things that we need. We need a lot more clubs for student parents, not just student fathers, but for student parents in general. Um, and I feel like that kind of ties into support group activity. That's all pretty much the same thing.
I agree. I think that through different projects that we've had, we've found that student parents really want to be part of different clubs where they can meet and relate to other student parents. At Madison College, September is our Student Parent Appreciation Month. And we so far don't have anything specific for student fathers, but we have like athletic events where student parents can come for an appreciation night, and there's like face painting and balloon artists that will come there. And last year we had our first one and it was a really cool time. A lot of student parents came and really enjoyed it. I think it would be pretty cool to have something specific for fathers, maybe around Father's Day or something, a appreciation event for student fathers.
Definitely a great idea. Definitely, definitely. I'm loving the questions, loving the questions. Um, Here we have, I hear folks talk about time management issues, but I wonder if it's more of a lack of time issue. And for those panelists who participated in student parent clubs on campus, how did you find time to participate in the club?
Definitely a lack of time in general between the kids going to school and having to go to work, and then the kids' sports after they're done with school, and then having to find time for yourself. It's definitely tough. That's for sure. I being part of the student parenting students club at MATC. I right now we have our club meetings once a month, and that hasn't been too hard to schedule. We sent out a like a Microsoft form at first to kind of gauge everyone's different availability, and we tried to schedule it around that. Not everyone is able to make it at the same time, and that's unfortunate.
I haven't actually been able to participate in a student parent club, but I will say that finding the time to create one alone has already been an extreme challenge. So I can imagine somebody who's trying to participate, it could be just as challenging. Um, but hopefully, down the line, we get to another place like this, I'll have an answer for that.
I think that's one of the most challenging pieces for everyone, is just on top of everything, how do they have time to come back to school and hang out for a club
Yeah.
after they
Yeah,
pick
but
the
it's vital. It's extremely vital. I'm pretty sure, some people find their ground at clubs. Just like, you ground yourself with your children, some people find that at the clubs. I know that's one of the reasons why I want to start it, so that people have a safe haven to whether, express or just be around other student parents.
have that support network.
Hmm.
Yes, and if I could, I would just like to add just a little bit to that question. As someone who has been doing marching band since the 7th grade, and this will be my third season, going into my third season as a father. Um, Majority of that possibility was made by like having a strong support system, and also having a willingness to kind of multitask as a father. So there's been times that I've actually taken my son with me to practice, to band practice, and have him there with me despite my time commitment to the band. It's just keeping reverence that I am a father first. And so I think it's possible if you prioritize the inclusivity of your child, and you kind of look at it in a space where you're not really letting societal norms shape the way you parent. And that's one of the biggest things that I clung to. It's just being like, I face many presumptions being, you know, how are you going to do band and you have a kid, how are you going to be here and this, that, and the third. And it was just, it's not that I wasn't capable of doing it. It was just, they can't or couldn't fathom me doing it. And so certain obstacles and opportunities I would say aren't even impossible. They might be a bit difficult, but with time, preparation, and just mitigating, they're definitely possible. And moving on to our next question. Let's see. How can programs that support single parent students help single dads feel welcome, supported? Oh, I'm sorry, let me rephrase. Help single dads feel welcome, supported, and included in programming with majority women.
Can you repeat it one more time, if you don't mind, just so I can?
Oh yeah, no problem. Let's see. How can programs that support single parent students help single dads feel welcome, supported, and included in programming with majority women?
Gotcha.
I think imagery has a lot to do with it. And you know, in the advertisements that you're putting out to students and student parents, you know, make it, you know, include student fathers on there just as well as student mothers. And I also feel like having a student father in a position that a student can come to talk to is important also. I think that everyone has different unique situations, and having someone that's more relatable to you when you go into an advisory situation can be beneficial.
I believe there's a level of inclusivity that you need to have, especially in a program that's majority women. But in that sense, I feel like it's also up to the majority women that's taking place in the program as well to acknowledge these single fathers. Because one of the biggest challenges that a single father faces is being acknowledged and being valued. And I think that's something that needs to be focused on. I don't know exactly how, but I do know that that acknowledgement and that value that we have for our student fathers in general is lacking. That's something that, you know, we need to tackle.
Great. Moving on to the next question. Thank you guys so much for the insightful responses, for sure. Definitely. Let's move in on. All right. Can anyone discuss challenges with the cost of childcare and how you were able to overcome those?
I didn't really have any challenges with this one, so I'll let Darren take it, but I did write a response. Pretty much essentially saying that CUNY does have resources. They are actually holding a symposium. I believe it is next week for new CUNY students and the transition into, you know, college and childcare resources.
Oh, finding or being able to afford, or I guess not being able to afford childcare was one of the main reasons that I decided to go back to school. Before I came to school, I worked as a mechanic, a master mechanic full time, and I spent more than half of my month's income just paying for daycare so I could go to work. When the pandemic started and schools closed and I was able to stay home with my kids, it was almost kind of like a blessing in disguise to kind of reevaluate and look for different sorts of daycare options. I I enrolled back in school and one of my advisors had mentioned the daycare assistance through the state to me. And I had applied for that and that really helped me out big time whenever I needed to put the kids into childcare. Right now, I'm doing an internship in the summer, so they're able to stay home with me, and that's been super, super helpful. But without the child care assistance program that the state offers, I don't know what I would have done. It was just so expensive for me to try and pay for by myself.
There was kids swimming at the pond, and now they're left.
Speaking of the kids, father's work is never done. And as hello. So we have time for just 2 more questions. Again, thank you guys so much for your responses. Let's see. We did have a question regarding mental health, which is a big one. I can't find it verbatim. I can't find it verbatim, but the question was, how did you prioritize your mental health during these times as a father? Or how did you keep reverence for your mental health?
Kind of ties into what Darren said earlier. You gotta find those small moments, whether it's a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, whether it's 60 seconds to take a breather. For me personally, I use writing as my outlet. So just, a 10-minute short story, a 15-minute rhyme, anything to, really recenter myself and get myself back to a place where I can be as productive as possible.
Yep, me too. And a big one for me that really helps me get regrounded is just being outside. Whether I'm like going for a bike ride or just going for a walk or even just going outside with the dog for a little bit, just something about being outside really takes my mind off of everything and recenters me and gets my focus back where it needs to be.
Also,
Yeah.
just to add to that, sometimes studying could be good for your mental health. Just that act alone could be good for your mental health. Sometimes it may feel like a chore because you're studying and it's based on school and academics, but I've learned that that has helped me a lot. If I'm ever feeling down or like I need a rise, sometimes just diving into my schoolwork can actually bring me right back up.
I can agree with that 100%. If you're having a hard time getting going, sometimes you just have to sit down and start and you get right into the zone and totally agree with you.
Definitely agrees. Definitely. All right, so we have time for just one more question. Let's see. Now these are some good ones. I'm not even gonna lie. Okay. So if we can make the responses quick, we can maybe fit them both. But what would you say to a teen father who is adamant about entering the workforce after high school, but you want to encourage them to explore higher ed?
This is actually a great one because I struggled with this in the beginning. Um, and I'll use this experience as an example. When I first decided that I want to pursue higher education, I kind of went back and forth with a family member of mine's on whether or not it was worth doing. And they were basing their ideas on, well, you need money, you need it now, and that's it. But my argument was, I need long term. I need stability. I need something that's going to carry my family to where they need to go. And in order to do that, I need to educate myself. You know, it's cool to work a 9 to 5, and I would never downplay working a 9 to 5. I've done it for a long time. But once I started to educate myself and pursue higher education, the opportunities that opened up for me in a professional world even changed. So, you know, that right there is the exact premise I would use to convince them. You know, it's about long term. It's about financial stability. It's about, you know, your end goal. It's not about, you know, just working your life away, because, you know, that's nobody wants to do that, honestly.
I agree with
Especially
that.
if, sorry, you know, especially with the example that that sets for your child. You know, you don't want your child to feel like life is about working 24/7. You know, you want the possibilities to be endless. You want to do whatever it is that you may want to do.
And I think a lot of young men that are coming out of high school and they're not really sure what they're going to do afterwards get kind of lured in by that paycheck. You know, it seems like a lot of money, and you know, you're able to afford the things that you need for life, but you don't. For me, I never really thought much other than that. You know, I got a job, I was paying for rent, I had everything, I didn't think about the future at all. But I would say to them, you know, the jobs are always going to be there. You know, take the chance that you have now to get the education and to put yourself into a position to where people are looking for you to do a job. You're not seeking out employment or resources from other people. Give people a reason to look for you.
And to
Beautiful.
add on to what Darren said, you know, the job is always going to be there. Educating yourself might make that job pay you more when you finally go there. You know, so it's all about the long-term goal. You know, I don't really believe in temporary finances, because I feel like that's what like working a 9 to 5 is essentially. It's like there's never really an end goal. It's just work, 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 work.
Thank you, gentlemen. Both. We just have one more question. And just to piggyback, in addition, as Generation Hope, and this is something that I've definitely learned being a part of the Student Parent Fellowship, the higher that you go in higher ed, the increased potential or socioeconomic mobility you provide for your children as well. So just to prioritize being in a space where you're consistently elevating yourself and trying to cultivate the most productivity and success for yourself, in turn just gives yourself or provides you being kind of more of an asset for your child. So, you know, the more experience you have, the more you have to give them. The more lessons you've learned, the more you have to teach them. So as we prioritize just elevating as fathers, and pursuing even in higher ed, it's never in vain to go higher in these facets, because it always in turns benefits your children, which is so great. And the last question, was there ever a moment when you both considered leaving school, and what kept you going? And that'll be our last question for the panel.
I had one time where I was just really struggling on a project in one class. It was a JavaScript class, and I could not figure out the last project, and was just I was being so hard on myself about it. And you know, I couldn't figure this out. What am I doing here? I'm not smart enough for this. And I just took some time away from the computer. Everything entirely, I just put it away. You know, we went camping for the weekend, and I thought about everything that I was telling myself through the past week, and something, you know, I just realized I was being ridiculous. I was here for a reason. I had to keep going, and I couldn't just let one hard thing stand in my way. I've been through how many hard things to get to this point. I just have to keep going.
100%. There was a moment when I was actually getting my GED so that I can pursue higher education that I almost just quit. And what kept me going was the support of fatherhood, but also it was the support of students that I met on campus. you know, seeing where they were going with their lives and them encouraging me that I could do the same and that I would be there in no time, is really what kept me going. And I'm glad because I got my GED. I started working for fatherhood. I enrolled into LaGuardia Community College. Like my life really changed in a matter of 6 months, maybe less than that. But it started with me making that conscious decision. I'm big on making conscious decisions. I feel like you have to really make a decision with yourself and then you have to act on it.
Beautiful, beautiful responses. Thank you both. Thank you, gentlemen, both for the impactful, insightful, just the vulnerability that you all have displayed. Thank you guys for just sharing just a little bit of you guys' experience, just to educate some of the individuals watching and just provide um, more so some substance to the research that's been provided. So thank you guys both for an amazing panel, and continue to represent the positive narrative that we so passionately are fighting for as fathers, especially in a world that it already shapes us by the stigma and stereotypes. So again, just thank you guys so much just for being amazing panelists. And I'm just gonna hand it back over to Dr. Williams, and I thank you all for having me as the moderator. It's been an immense pleasure and privilege, and I'll just be handing it back over to her. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Corey. Thank you, Darren. Thank you, Chris. My heart is full. I am so grateful for you all today, sharing your story. We are thankful. My team is thankful for your expertise, your vulnerability. Thank you so much in sharing your journeys as student fathers. And I also want to thank the audience. Thank you for tuning in today. Thank you for engaging with such amazing questions. I just want to remind you all that if you have any other questions that you would like to ask, you could always reach out to us, reach out to our policy and research team at policy@generationhope.org. We will also share this information in the chat for you. But this concludes today's webinar. Thank you all again for joining us, and please stay tuned for more of our upcoming work and opportunities to engage with student parents. Take care.